Live from the Pathway Studios in Johnston proper. You are live from the Path.
We're coming from the Pathway Studios here in Johnston proper.
You're like the human version of a trucker hat.
What does that mean?
What that means?
Yeah. Air conditioning in the back.
What? You said that like it was a clarifying statement. Like now I should be like,
oh yeah, now.
I understand now. Air conditioning in the back.
All I see is a trucker hat with lips moving.
It's horrifying. Sounds like a terrible dream.
Tim's oil beacon.
Okay, you're listening to Live from the Path. Here's what going on the show this evening. So I have this struck me a couple weeks ago, and I may have shared this with one of you guys, maybe more. I don't remember, but like I have it's a confession really, but it occurred to me. Well, I want to talk about it. So I have a confession to make.
I would like to rebut.
Okay,
based on your rambling nothingness.
No, it's
I've got a confession to make.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, so and it was I feel like I often don't appreciate the good news in its fullest. Ooh. And this is the thing I realized a few weeks ago. That on paper I would have told you, I would totally have agreed to, but like I just had not cognitively tied some things together, and this was very helpful for me. So, to the New Year's confession from Ben. So we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I had a question. This is the opening gambit that we had just before the show, and it was about: is there something where like a product, service, or something that maybe you didn't feel like there's any value in. If someone were to say, hey, you should try this or whatever, you'd be like, nah, that's stupid. I don't really need or want that. And then you tried it and you're like, I'm never going back. Or I cannot believe I had no idea that this was so useful or good or awesome or whatever. Buva's was a toothpaste dispenser.
It's a toothpaste dispenser. It's a thing that you open up your toothpaste one, you put it in, and then it's got a little thing that you push your toothbrush head onto, and then it puts out the toothpaste and you don't have to do anything else. It's friggin' great. At first, I thought it was really stupid because I'm just like, I never want to be in a place where I'm so lazy where I go, I got to brush my teeth twice a day, but I really hate unscrewing that cap.
Right.
But then when I got it, I'm like, holy crap, this is fantastic. I love it.
You're never going back.
I love that thing.
Okay. You never see yourself living without an automatic toothpaste
it's so friggin' easy. It was cheap, and I could put it anywhere. It's great.
Okay. All right. Dan, did you think of one?
Man, I just kept thinking about it, and I tend to be kind of an early adapter, or is that the word?
Early adopter.
Adopter. There we go. I knew that sounded funny. It's the words. They have trouble with those things. But so I generally jump on things and have, but then unless they're too expensive. So I struggled. But here's the latest thing. Probably would be just the whole streaming world for TV.
Yeah.
Like I finally got rid of satellite. And I really waited, partly because I'm lazy, because I hate to call some corporate person and fight with them about why I don't want their service, and they'll try to beg me. But I did it anyway, and I already had replaced them. And I kind of enjoy the streaming thing. It's like a lot cheaper, and I don't watch that much TV, so why am I spending money? And it's good, it's clear.
Dan, I'm not going to call you out here.
Okay.
But are you saying to me that in 2024 you started taking in streaming services and you're an early adopter of them?
Well, in that case, I've been doing like Netflix and all this stuff for a long time, for years.
Okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying like I'm finally on the Peacock. I know nobody else is.
I got myself a microwave oven.
I'm an early adopter. I got rid of satellite in 2024. Sorry. Okay. I was just clarifying.
Satellite plus, all the other Prime, things. Yep. And I thought I'm spending way too much money.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to give up like my base.
Got it.
Stuff.
Okay.
And then we went a few months. I'm like, I'm not even watching this stupid thing. So that's all I could think of. I mean, there's probably all kinds of gadgets out there that I can't think of any.
I think I've got an answer for Mike.
Okay.
It's deodorant. He never thought he'd be one for it.
Pshaw.
And then very recently he was like, I'm tired of smelling like roadkill.
I'm still 50-50 on it. I think mine's too broad, right? But like mine is like in the last couple of years, like I've been very conscientious in buying good things, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to chew through 5 ratchets anymore. I just want to buy one good one. I don't want to own 8 pairs of jeans that are going to fall apart. I just need 2 good ones, right? Like I try not to. I don't know, and like it might just be by the time you turn 40 something, like we're not scraping the barrel. Like I probably could only afford when I was 25 to buy a cheap ratchet and break it. You know what I'm saying, and just have it last you as long as you could. But like, I'm even buying the lifetime guarantee brake shoes now, opposed to the well, good luck. We'll see you in a year brake shoes that I had.
3 months, we'll figure out where they're looking at.
Yeah, and so like I don't know if that's just a station in life thing, you know, that has changed, but like I will wait and buy a good thing, or I will buy nothing, opposed to like just buying crappy things.
I think one other thing
Okay.
is the Target pickup, like where you can drive up and have them bring out your groceries.
Yeah.
Like I always said to myself, if I'm ever in a place where I'm too lazy to walk into the store to get the thing, I no longer deserve the thing. Like I no longer, like it's never a place where I'm like, I really don't want to walk into Target.
Yeah.
Like there's never a situation. I just have to go, I don't get that today.
Yeah.
I get that on a day that I'm willing to walk into Target. But then my wife places 1,115 Target orders a week, and she's constantly either on her way to or from Target. And then out of nowhere, like a week ago, I had to get cat food, and I had to get like rice-a-ronies for her or something. And like I didn't want to go to Walmart to grab them. So I'm like, I'm just going to place the order at Target. And I did, and I was like, oh no, this is fantastic.
This is pretty great.
I even filled out my car's information. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I would never have done this before. I would always say, just go in. Like, you're ridiculous. You're already a big enough guy. You do not deserve laziness. And you do not deserve the situation where you're like, my cats need to eat, but I really don't want to walk 185 feet. No.
You feel obligated to help the guy unload?
Yeah.
No, but I should say I've never been in a situation where I didn't just reach my hand out and grab the stuff.
Oh.
Oh, they hand it to you?
I asked them to.
Oh.
Maybe that's my way of like subtly going, well, I haven't given up fully. I don't want to walk in, but I'll move my left arm for you.
I always sometimes at Walmart, like we'll do the order ahead or whatever, and every once in a while I'll have to go pick it up. And I don't know about y'all, my cars are never in a state of affair where it's obvious of where you should put the groceries, and so I don't
Back
get,
left?
I don't feel like, I don't care what the temperature is, or whatever. I feel obligated to get out and go, I know, and then point to say. Or like either say you can set it back there, or because I know like they have to do what I would have done, which is once you get 6 sacks in, stuff starts tumbling out because of all the other stuff I got back there. And so I'm like, I'll just hand them to me, and I'll do it, or I'll load them because it feels like I won't put it on them to have to figure it out and be more careful with my stuff than I would be. I'm like, just throw the peanut butter in; it's gonna be no problem.
I like to imagine I'm on a drug delivery. Like,
Of course you do.
Show up, you pop the trunk, you put it, you don't make eye contact with the guy. And then you have him shut it. You have him smack the trunk twice, and then you cut a trail.
Yeah,
They're going off.
That's how those work.
Don't look on me.
it's like I've inadvertently been on a couple of those.
I was wondering why they just popped the trunk.
I always help the guy unload. I'm just kidding. I can't help it. I feel obligated, like he's already come out there and bundled all the stuff. Like it's my
working so
job to
hard.
put it in the car.
Yeah,
I thought of a legitimate thing that's better than live streaming.
Okay.
'Cause that was just a lame thing, but I couldn't think of.
No, you're good. I just
No, it really is
interesting
lame.
to-
I just couldn't. I was desperate. I had to think of something.
All right.
But water bottles. I remember. I thought who would be stupid enough to buy water in a bottle?
Yes.
And then I did it, and I'm like, oh crap! I buy it by the case all
don't
the
know how to
time.
go back.
Now I'm trying to like get back off of it, and but still, it's like,
Dang it.
man,
Right.
because they're so freaking handy.
yeah.
I can throw a whole case in the back of the truck, and then.
And it feels like you're doing something more responsible, because like in absence of a water bottle, maybe you end up buying something else, or you
Exactly.
drink more water like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
can see that. Okay.
That's a total. That's yeah.
What about you, man?
Here's the thing: is legit. I'm asking this question because I have to give a presentation in a couple months, and I want an example. And I cannot come up with one that I'm satisfied with. And so, like the thing that popped in my head, which is it does not work for what I need it to work for, but it was a voice text, which is what's interesting is I hate it.
I hate it too.
Because it's not right. Like I
I'm
know,
humble.
I know, yes, right. And like all my inadequacies, people are very forgiving when you're saying it out loud. They are not forgiving in the written word. But and my wife had done it for the longest time, and I'm like, I hate this. I wish this would just stop. Like, I'd rather you have the 2 to 3 word answer. And then I tried doing it one time. I'm like, wow, this is. I use my voice for everything. I do Google searching, and I was taking some notes for something on the way here, and I just open up the old record, and I'm just talking away in the truck, and I'm like, I really hate myself for what I've become, but this is really great. I would. In fact, I found myself. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I will call. I left a voicemail for a guy the other day, and I kept saying "period," like, "Hey man, just giving you a call back." Period.
My
My wife's done that
that
at
is
work.
hysterical.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Oh God, I
Man.
get that voicemail.
So anyway, but it doesn't fit what I want. So let me open it up to you guys. There for the new year. What is something where you just didn't know? It didn't sound. It sounded dumb, or you had no. It doesn't even have to be dumb. Because the other thing I was thinking of is that, like, have you ever seen somebody do something and you're like, wow, I had no idea that thing could be solved that way, or this was a way to go do that. I've been struggling to figure this out or accomplish it forever, and then you saw a guy do it and you thought, wow, that's smart as heck. And it changed, and you'll never go back. You'll never do it a different way because you saw a guy do it.
Like the digital book.
You love those?
Oh.
I do.
Okay, that's a good one, Dan. Actually,
Like
I've
the
switched
Kindle
over.
or an audiobook?
Like the Kindle type thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So I used to be staunchly against reading my Bible on my phone, and like it's really come into its thing for me lately.
Oh.
Yeah, like
It's just always there.
yeah, it's just, right. Like because and it's out of sheer convenience, right? Like I
Right.
can just pop into a meeting room and read my Bible for like 20 minutes.
Yep.
And like I don't know, there's something about making a big production out of it, getting this big old hefty ancient scroll out of my bag, But like I can just pop into a room and read and whatever, and like I've really turned a corner on that. I really hated that for
It's
the
hard to be
longest time.
self-righteous, though. You have to say, hey, reading my Bible.
Look at this. I'm not
And then
playing
you can sit down
Homescapes
at the
like you
break room
think.
and do it.
It's not Homescapes. I love the Lord. I do.
I swear I'm not on TikTok.
Okay, so anyway, if you have one, a good example for me, hit up on the Live from the Path Robert S. Eisenhower complaint line, 515-517-0085. That's 515-517-0085. Call or text, even voice text if you got to do it. I'd love to hear your example.
Hey, man.
Robert S. Eisenhower?
Yeah, S stands for Shabab.
Yeah.
What is one of 4 U.S. presidents that have been assassinated? What was that guy? Robert S. Eisenhower? That's awesome.
No, it's Bob Eisenhower.
I'm aware of that. I'm
Bob
just saying
Shabab
Robert
Eisenhower.
Bob Shabab Eisenhower. No, I'm just saying Robert S. Eisenhower
He put
sounds like a president.
He put the dip in the dipty dip.
And that one's for you, boo.
Hey, so,
I hate every bit of this.
somebody signed me up on Facebook as looking for a house in Arizona, right?
Are you looking
and
for a
signed
house
me
in
up
Arizona?
at the realtor thing.
Yeah.
And I have gotten hundreds of emails, texts, phone calls. At first, I thought it was
Somebody pranked you?
yeah, somebody somewhere.
I wish it was me. It's so good.
Same.
It's
And
so
I'm
good.
like, I finally had to start responding, going, I'm not looking for a house in Arizona. And they're like, oh, we're sorry. Well, you signed up at blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that was not me.
Sure didn't.
But they had my phone number and my name and my email.
Dan,
so.
you're the only person on the planet that I would not immediately become suspicious of like what websites you've been on. I know you haven't been on that kind of stuff, and so like I don't know who's pranking you.
On the black web of realty.
RobertSEisenhower.net.
Now that is a super like innocent prank.
Right, exactly.
Right. Like people do some very nefarious things. Dan, have you thought through like there might be a friend where you're like,
Old Randy always signing me up for like Arizona Realty.
yeah.
I mean, I've been suspicious a little bit, but not.
Do you have any arch enemies?
I'm only one who could listen to the show once in a while, so I won't say the name to
Okay.
give them joy. But
We're on to you.
I blocked them everywhere else, though.
We know who you are.
So I did this to myself once. Like there was a friend of mine was selling his house. He was moving back to Iowa, and he was selling his house in South Carolina. And so he's like, oh, look, you should look at it on the web. And I'm like, hey, man, you want to see how fast your realtor responds? I'll tell him I'm interested and I need financing options. And he goes, yeah, that would be great.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I did it, and it was an onslaught.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it was
bet.
2 minutes later, all of a sudden, like, this is
We heard you're looking for a house.
Veterans Home Mortgage Association.
Really
We
love
got
to
the
earn
best
your
rates
business.
for you. I'm like, you don't have the best rates.
Hey man, speaking of pranks,
Yeah.
that are supposed to be innocent, that are hysterical. Friend of mine had some money owed to him recently. It was a very small amount. It's like $40.
Yeah.
The person paid him back in dollar bills, which automatically is funny to me, admittedly. But apparently, she put glitter over all the $40 bills and didn't tell him and wadded it up, and he immediately like took it and put it in his wallet, and he was at Casey's buying drinks and he takes out all these ones to start paying, and they're covered in glitter. And so the cashier was looking at him like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you have all these dollar bills covered in glitter? And so like he gets back in the car, his hands are, I mean, literally covered in glitter. And I'm laughing so hard, wondering what's going on. Is he like, what is happening? Told me that story. I'm like, that's actually a pretty funny thing to do. Like, I might do that to somebody someday. What are you, $10? Okay, here you go. Here's $10. Why is it dollar bills? Just deal with it.
Is the intent to make it seem like he works at a naughty dance shop?
I think so. I think the thought is like there's a certain type of dance that people would do to get 40 glittery dollar bills.
He's
and
the
it's
dancer.
the cha-cha slide.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, in this scenario, he's the dancer, not someone who had exchanged money for the dance.
Yeah, okay.
Again, we're talking the cha-cha slide.
Yeah, okay. All right. 515-517-0085.
Robert S. Eisenhower.
I'd be totally curious of what is your, I'm never going back. I was hoping for an example of like, I couldn't land on one, but it had to do with like car work, like things that I struggle with where like I try to go do something. I feel like I'm wailing away on something for 3 hours. And then you see someone who's been around and then they just wheel right in and they do something. You're like, oh, totally. That's how I would do it. Like, I can't believe I struggled so long. But here's what I find is it tends to be I was doing the right thing. I was just doing it like a ninny. I was afraid of breaking something, snapping something off, and then some other guy comes in there with like TNT and elbow, and they're like, "That's how you do it."
Yeah.
I didn't realize you was being a sissy in here for 3 hours.
That's the carburetor.
Okay, I'm going to give you a tip right now.
Okay.
This is how you end up going through 5 cheap ratchets and then buying one good ratchet. Is you go to take something off and it won't move, so you take your top of your jack handle off and put it on the ratchet as an extendo bar.
yeah.
That'll give you the torque you need, but it'll break. It'll break a $25 ratchet every time.
Actually, I had that exact thing happen. I was trying to get some exhaust off a car this last year, and I did. I took the jack handle, put it on there, so I had some extra leverage, and I probably only had 2 inches worth of clearance, but like you could really nail it down there. And
Get some torque in it.
The bolt came off, but it did snap the
I
ratchet.
almost always take off the jack handle. Now I don't even fool around with it. If I feel like it's going to be stubborn, I just take the jack handle off.
Yeah.
There was one moment in my life when I realized that there's a level of luxury that you're given if you have enough cash to just bypass having to do stupid stuff. And it was when I was replacing brakes on my F-250. And I was at your place, actually. And I think me and your brother had like 9 C-clamps on the calipers trying to get them to depress to be able to put the brake pads back on. And like after 3 days, you said, "Stop it. Just buy new calipers." And like, I mean, I kid you not, we were out there for days trying to get these things depressed. It's like, just being stupid. Just go buy a new set of calipers. You're dumb. It was like $110. And the labor that we had spent, just like literally, I mean, I'm on my hands and knees trying to get these frickin' C-clamps to depress these calipers. So stupid. I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. Let's go buy them.
I had something like that. Okay, this is not near the elbow grease of a story, but this week or this past week, someone had they had like a PDF file and they needed some updates or something made to it. And PDF files are difficult. Like you get them unlocked,
Yeah,
and then
right.
like to try to edit them, either you got to have a really expensive program, or all the cheapies don't do quite what you want.
Yep.
Okay, and so I probably spent about 45 minutes jacking with this thing, trying to add the thing that they wanted. I'm like, you know what? This is dumb. So I went to Fiverr and I found a lovely lady from India who turns it around in 48 hours, and she wanted $10. And I can do anything with your PDF file. I send her the thing. I send her the text. 36 hours later, for $10, she did exactly the thing that I asked for.
Fiverr just opens up your world to realize that there's someone on some part of the planet that's willing to do the thing that you don't want to do over the next day in 5 minutes for $5.
They're good at it.
Yep.
It's worth it for them to do it. It's not
Not even
worth
that
you
much of an
spending-
interaction.
Nope.
It's just like, you explain the problem. Here it is. Yeah, I can do that.
You know what's not a bad example is having someone change your oil for you.
Yes.
Like I always felt like there was like I have I don't know who changes the oil in my wife's van, but it's usually not me. I'll do it like if I'm teaching the girls how to do it, I'll do it on our own, or I do it on my car. But like as soon as I figured out that like they can basically do it cheaper than I can do it, and like for they can get her in and out in like 20 minutes, I'm like, this is the plan.
Yeah.
Let's just have someone else change this oil.
Yeah.
I don't got to be down in there doing this.
I have never changed my oil in my life.
Yeah.
Ever.
I've done it once, and I broke it.
Yeah, see, that's it. I would make a mess. I would break it. I'd I do all kinds of bad
The little
things.
screw, the like bleeder bolt or whatever it is that you're supposed to like not super tightly bolt back on.
Yeah.
I snapped it in half.
Yep.
Yep, and then my car leaked until I had it
People
impounded.
like you and I are not trustworthy. in
No
vehicles.
jack handle necessary.
Well, like
Right, yes. Yeah, I don't need the jack handle. I was up underneath the thing and still had enough power in my hand to snap the thing in half. And I'm like, this is why you don't get guys like me underneath these cars.
Yep.
Like, this is a bad idea. It was a little Chevy Cobalt.
I feel
size of my
like
shoe.
well, actually, I did the same thing happened to me. Like, I don't change my. I've maybe done it once or twice, but like you always end up with all this excess oil, and like they've got big tanks for it. They sell it back to some
Right.
guy. Like they've got a program. I just have it sitting
$10
next to my
will take it all.
garbage, figuring out where I'm willing to pollute. Because like I'm obviously not dragging it to wherever the recycle
Is this a
center
clean
is.
water source?
Yeah, and I have a well, so I can't dump it in my own place.
You should put it on your burn pile, and then when you burn the burn pile, it'll burn the oil.
I've
Would it also burn your lungs?
Well, you don't stand there taking it in. You fire it up and run away.
You don't take hits off your burn pile? What are you doing, man?
Come on, woman, I'm burning the
Hits
oil.
hits off the burn pile. Sounds like a Grateful Dead.
Where's my union suit?
Sounds like a Grateful Dead album. Hits off the burn pile.
All right, you're listening to Live from the Path. Go ahead and hit us up with your, the things that you just can't
Many
say.
things.
You wouldn't go back, 515-517-0085. Okay, confession. Here's a confession time. Here's what I got. So it occurred to me that everything, if I looked at my life, I assessed my life right now, and I said, what are the things that are good? It would be like my job, my marriage, this radio program, and the fact that I get to be a pastor of a church. Like if I had to pick and dad, and to be a dad. So there's 5. I have. If someone were to hold me to the strictest letter of what it means to be a good employee, a good dad, a good husband, a good pastor, and a good guy who's good at running, especially a Christian radio show, I have failed at every one of these things. Like I have my human fallibilities, frailties, personal choices, or whatever. I would not be allowed to do these things anymore, and it. Like I knew this, right? Like I think if you were to ask, like, are we imperfect people? Of course, Jesus dies for your imperfections, totally. But like I've grown up and been surrounded by the good news of the grace of Jesus. That like the grace, it doesn't have to. I think sometimes like this happens denominationally too, where like we overemphasize how crappy you are as a person to make sure you don't lose this very thing that I'm talking about. I don't think I'm not sure that's particularly valuable for as often as we crank on it. But like, it did not occur to me until like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago that like, I don't deserve to keep my job. I literally don't. I have at times, I've worked for the same company 20 years, and like I could, any given week, I could probably, so my boss could probably go, look, if I looked at absolutely everything you did, if I had the ability to see all the stuff that you did this week, like you were jacking around for an hour on Facebook movies. Like I'm gracious with myself. I think, oh, Facebook movies. I'll pick up one here and there. It's incidental, no problem. In fact, those are the terms. And the thing is that like most people at my job are probably doing something very similar. They're probably burning 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, whatever. And the grace of all that is kind of built in. We're all kind of gracious to each other because we all do it. But if you were to hold me to what I owe that company for what they pay me to do, I deserve to be fired for my behavior within the last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, most certainly over 20 years worth of time. In my marriage, my wife and I are both obviously fallible people, but like, could my wife say, look, based upon the standards of what it is to be a good husband, have you nailed it every time? No, I've not. I have not. And so I look at all those things, the things that are valuable to me, the things I find very important, and it hit me hard to think about that. Like, if the world, if the people around me held me to the standard of what perfect was in all these things, all of it would be gone tomorrow. I simply would not be allowed to do it anymore. And that God looks at me graciously in my frailties and fallibilities and even wrong and sinful choices. And not only is that true, but like because my wife follows Jesus, she is also kind to me and gracious with me. And although my job are not particularly like followers of the Lord, but like there is a built-in acceptance of, well, some people just waste time and sometimes they don't do great work all the time, and like we're gracious with each other. Culturally, we are like this because of the things that I think God has put into people. And even on this radio program, like just pick a shortcoming in my life, pick a sin that I'm guilty of or whatever. Like, do I have any right to speak and suggest that someone else should listen to something that I say in my lack of perfection? And the answer is no. I don't. If my life were laid bare, you could easily go, absolutely not another word from that guy right there. And most certainly he should not be allowed to get up and speak to anybody as a pastor anymore. And so I know all those things were true, but for some reason it hit me that like I had never really like the it felt far off to be like, hey, in your imperfection you don't deserve like heaven. That felt really far off. But the thought that like if all my shortcomings came to bear in this moment, everything I love, I don't deserve. It could all be taken away from me, and probably and should be, if the standard was you should behave exactly as God designed you to behave. And so I guess that's my confession. I think I felt the good news more tangibly because I saw like is it the opposite of It's a Wonderful Life? Maybe it feels like the opposite, but like I felt like I could touch a moment of which everything I loved could be taken away from me, and it would have been justified if the standard of what it was to be good and perfect in any of those things I was actually held accountable to. And so I was very thankful in the moment of God's graciousness and forgiveness, but also how His grace has permeated into the world that surrounds me. The fellas in this room are gracious to me. They're kind to me in my shortcomings, right? Not only like remember we talked about the 5 on show. I look back and some things that I've regret. Sometimes I use words that I shouldn't, right? And I'm very kind to myself about it because I'm like, well, I understand who I am. I have shortcomings and fallibilities. But like, if we were to say, here are the standards of it is to be a host of a Christian radio show, like in the presence of, I don't know, all kinds of things that I've said, we could reasonably go, nope, you don't get to do that anymore. And so like God is gracious with His people. He is gracious with people who have some sort of influence over others. And anyway, I just had what felt like a very profound thankfulness because the good news felt very tangible to me. Like I felt like I could see it and touch it in such a way that didn't have the effect of going, dude, you really, really, really suck. Even though parts of that are probably true, it did remind me that God is really, really, really good. And He's really patient and kind, and He has created and influenced people so that I am married to a very patient and kind woman because God is very patient and kind to her, and I'm very patient and kind to my friends and family because that's what God has done for me. And it creates a world of which it's the right way to look about it in our frailties. But I felt like I probably would say that I haven't felt such a tangible view of recognizing what the mercy of God actually looks like until I had to render it like everything that I cared about in this life in the next second could be gone based upon my own willful, purposeful behavior. And so that's my confession. And I don't know if I'm particularly embarrassed about it, but I thought it's interesting to have followed Jesus for as long as I have and would have agreed to all the things I just said as just pure facts, but to not have it feel the weight of it until maybe the realization that I had just within the last 2 to 3 weeks.
I think those are powerful and healthy moments for a person, really,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I've had those before where I'll just sit there and just in the quiet, I'll go into a worship space with all the lights off and just sit there and just think like, what the heck?
Right. Right.
Yeah. I have no business doing anything.
Any of these things.
Anything.
Right.
And but none of us have ever. Yeah.
Right.
And we all, and then you go through all that, but to push all that aside, no, really.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I found it very helpful, valuable, because the thing that it points you to is gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like I get it's an interesting way to think about it, but I feel like I get so used to my own shortcomings that I forget that they're significant shortcomings. Like I forget that they require mercy to live with, certainly by God, definitely my wife, the fellas in this room, the people at my job. Just because someone is gracious with me does not mean I needed it. I actually needed it, and so I presumed upon that graciousness, I think. Not intentionally. I don't go like I totally deserve this, but like you get so used to people being kind to you and gracious with you, especially if you're surrounded by Christian community, like they're trying to be that I forget that I run the risk of presuming upon it. Oh, it'll be fine. Well, of course they'll overlook it. Like everybody watched Facebook movies this week. I mean, okay, but like it didn't make it right or good. The fact that they didn't fire me the second. I need to be thankful for the work that I have, for the wife that I have, for the friends that surround me. I have a lot to be thankful for, and to be have a lot of gratitude for the life that I have and the people that I have, and just the amount that people put up with my fallibilities. And I think if you get too confident and too presumptuous in that, you don't recognize that you don't recognize how much mercy that you're collecting because you presumed upon it. And I think it's healthy to recognize your shortcomings, not because God wants you to know that you suck necessarily. Like we're all clear on that. Like everybody should know that. But it's to recognize His goodness, and for me to be thankful for the gratitude of my wife, for that He's surrounded me with good friends and people who will do a radio show with me and be kind, even though I said a W word too many times on the air. Like whatever. Like I think it's a right rendering. It's a good reminder to point me to gratitude, and maybe that's if there's a theme that I was trying to carry through into this year for me. It was that like what are you not like actively being thankful for that you should be, and like the list probably doesn't end. It's super big, and it goes towards some things we've been talking about. We were talking about some of the shows last year where we are thankful and have gratitude for it, you just don't tend to be so unhappy. Like if you're thankful for the world around you, it's harder to be hosed off at it. And people and relationships or whatever, like it just puts it in the right perspective. And I presume upon things that then skew how I view relationships, and that's a mistake. And so anyway, Ben's confession.
I think that's like it's a hard perspective to grasp, right? Because we vacillate between I didn't do the things I did, or the things that have been done to me aren't really that big of a deal, or we vacillate to I'm the worst ever.
Yeah.
And like it's very hard to get that perspective in the middle. And some of that is the Holy Spirit, and like some of that is you positioning yourself to be in line with the way God wants to look at it, right? And so like some of it is I found it like actually pretty helpful here recently. Like I hate devotionals, and I started doing this devotional, and like I get irritated because they get repetitive.
Yeah.
Right. But they're repetitive in like a really good thing that like you recount, like your day from the start to the end, and like, God, can you just show me where I've fallen short and what I've done either by accident or willfully or whatever, like, which can you show me where my sin is, right? And like, if you have to walk through and recount this, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah. And like, you're taking it in at its full weight and measure. And then God goes, okay, you gave that to me now this is gone, right? So like that really helps processing it, right? Where you're like, you're not ignoring it or acting like it didn't happen or minimizing it and being like, wasn't that big of a deal. God's like, I want you to let me shine light on everything that is going on in your life. Mm-hmm. And then I want you to watch me take it out of the room and then leave nothing but a room full of light. That's what I want. Because without that, right, like you do one of two things. You either hold it in your room and think I'm just the worst ever, or you act like it wasn't that big of a deal. And like, you can't have gratitude for the weight that God has lifted off of you unless you recognize that it was a weight.
Yeah.
That it was actually there. And you also have to know that like a thing that's been permeating, like it's probably just because I've been reading the minor prophets, right? And well, all the prophets, but like the scriptural theme of God's mighty right hand. Like when he says, it kills me, right? Like if you ever read the prophets straight through, it's nothing but God being like, here's the things that's going to happen. Like, I am justice, and I'm done with this. I'm done with you guys mischaracterizing me. I'm done with you guys sinning and taking my name in vain and then crying to me and acting like, oh, Lord, where you didn't show up. And then he always comes and he says the worst things, right? Like, I will set all of your fields on fire. No one will live here. I will sell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're like, wow. And then he goes, but if you will just turn to me, then I will put you down beside still waters. You will rest under the shadow of my wings. I will make mountains low. And like he says, like, and it's always the same thing. It's like, here's all the things that you did, and here's all the things they deserve. But if you would just turn to me, and like it keeps, it's similar to what Ben has said. Like it's kept me from trying to humanly scheme to fix problems, right? Right? Like he just says, if you will turn to me. That's all he's ever asked. It's all Jesus asked. Even when Jesus has that conversation with Nicodemus and he's trying to explain spirit and water, right? Like he's like, this is not a kingdom based on where you're at or what you do. This is a kingdom that exists in spirit between a spiritual thing, right? If you will just turn to me and let me do the God things, and I'm going to show you that I am faithful to do those things. And like it seems so difficult because like even because it wears you down after a while. You become apathetic to it. You're like, God, I've been turning these things over to you, but it feels at this point that there needs to be some human things done. So here's the things I was thinking, you know, and like God inevitably will answer. Those who are faithful to me will receive this. This is what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
And like if you look back on your life, I can look back on my own life and go, have I ever actually been that faithful? To think that like he really needs to be involved in this, and I am not going to try to race him to the conclusion. I'm not going to try to beat him there. I'm not going to try to come up with my own scheme. I'm going to ask him because he says this in Isaiah, right? Like I will guide you. If you trust in me, I will guide you to the left and guide you to the right. So you're still doing things, but you're asking him the things to do because he's the one that owns the mighty right hand. You own the nothing. You know what I'm saying? And so like once again, you get into this place of complete gratitude where you're like, what do people do without you? Like what do people do without God? I'm sure they would turn around and look at us and go, look, like you're using this as a big crutch. I'm like, yeah, but it's a crutch that just meters out justice and loves unconditionally and like does all, like you can call it a crutch if you want to, but you've put a crutch costume on the creator of the universe who is faithful with a mighty right hand that when he says if he's going to lay a mountain low, he will do it. And he follows it up and says, I will do it. And these are the things, you know? And so like, I don't know, like it's an extremely gracious gift that God would give you, right? To allow you to see those things in that perspective and to remind you that like you still have like God's work gets done by God's people, but you've got to allow him to do the left and to the right and like literally lean on him to be faithful in the things that he promises to be faithful on. And then when he does it, like you are just overwhelming with gratitude. You're like all the promises that you made are definitely true. And like it's just a stepping stone to becoming more and more faithful because he is always faithful.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Hey, you're listening to Live from the Path. Thanks for hanging out with us so far this evening. I think we're gonna start your year off right, where you're like, I know I heard from some of you guys on the chat. You're like, my New Year's resolution is to not spend more than an hour listening to Live from the Path. I think that's appropriate.
Wow. Yeah.
Now I can't promise you that we're going to cut the show at that time, but like we're going to do this first one. We're going to give you a shot to get a check mark. All right. So we're going to do our advice now, and we may come in under an hour. We're going to see what happens. So here we go.
Dear Live from the Path, my grandmother and I have lived together for the past 22 years. She raised me from the age of 3. We used to be best friends. However, over the last few years, things have changed. We don't agree on a lot, and we have very different opinions on almost everything. We argue and fight with name-calling, threats, and a lot of disrespect. I have suggested we go to counseling a couple of times, but she's never shown any interest. I know I have an anger problem, which I take full responsibility for. I also know the best thing to do in these situations is probably to turn around and walk away, but sometimes she pushes my buttons and I can't help but fight back. I understand this is a problem that needs to be fixed, and I want to, but I don't know how to start. I know you've written a booklet about anger. What can I do? What can I do short of moving out?
Yeah. It sounds like it's time to move out.
Yeah.
So she's like, or I'm assuming it's a female.
I don't know. It didn't say.
They're 26.
25, yeah, maybe.
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yep.
And living with grandma, which is great. But it's time to fly. it's time to spread those wings. Get out of that nest.
Yeah, you didn't really say what you and your grandma are disagreeing on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Just everything.
I mean, if it's like
They irritate each other.
It's what show to watch in the afternoons.
I mean, there's certain things that you can disagree on, and there's certain things that, like, how the house runs or the way that the day-to-day goes down. Like, if it's nothing but picking and fighting about all that stuff, then it's definitely time for you to go.
Well, they're both trying to be adults, and guess what? There's only room for one.
Yeah. I don't. In fact, I don't know why. It'd be interesting to see why you don't want to move out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is she dependent on you in some way? Like, if you're there because your grandma needs you to be there or something, that's a little different. But I'm guessing just by the context that it's probably the other way around, that you're still there and you should probably be getting out.
Even at this age, yeah, if there is like a physical reason for them to be together because of a need, well, you need some boundaries then and separate lives. You know, if you're an adult. You're both adults. You both should be doing adult things with different people.
Yeah.
And enjoy each other as family, but there either needs to be a separation or at least boundaries. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I don't understand. This seems not to be about your grandmother at all.
Yeah.
Like, this is like if you go, hey, I know I have anger problems, and there's an old lady that's pushing my buttons, like this is you, and so either you got to whatever since you weren't specific about what it is that's making you angry or making her, whatever this woman's doing to cause you. I'm guessing because you're it's dumb. Like, you shouldn't be getting angry about it. Otherwise, people tend to defend themselves with specifics when they know that someone's wrong. And so I think you're glossing over it because you know you're in the wrong. And so really, I think you're just going, hey, how do I control my anger? I'm an angry person.
And it doesn't sound like they're angry with everyone, though. I think they're just
it's
they're
just
at
the
that
old
point of the relationship.
I mean, some of this stuff gets hard, right? Like, and like she's essentially functioning as your parent, right? You know, and like as you grow up, like. This is kind of difficult because you're especially at 25, like you're at an age where you should be maturing enough to know that, like, if it makes grandma uncomfortable that you come home at 1 a.m, right? Like, and you believe that it's fine that you come home at 1 a.m, you should move out and then come home at 1 a.m, right? You shouldn't be mad at grandma that she finds that distasteful, right? Like, she's an old lady. She don't want to be hearing the door open and close at 1 a.m, you know? And so, like, if it's stuff like that, yeah, it's just time to part ways. You know, you come over and help her all you want, have dinner with her and all that stuff, and all that can still be good. But, like,
probably healthier relationship then.
Yeah. Now, if you're like busting in the door and being like, you know, what do you think of abortion or something? And like, you're just like flying, like picking hot button issues and fighting with your grandma, right? Then you also have a problem. Like, you should move out and appreciate that your grandma has raised you from the age of 3. And like, all these things seem ungenerous on your part, I guess is what I'm getting after. By the time you're 25, right, you should be getting over the hump. We've extended adolescence way too late into almost 30s nowadays, right? Like, we expect more maturity out of a 15-year-old 100 years ago than we're expecting out of you. And so, like, you should be adding to grandma, not taking away from her. And if it's her house and it's running under her responsibility, her steam, her money, then I don't know, man. You don't have a whole lot of legs to stand on here.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, Secular's advice. Secular says, by admitting you have an anger problem, you've already taken a significant first step in dealing with it. I don't think that's true. You and your grandmother aren't the only people experiencing heightened emotions these days. We live in increasingly stressful times that have affected most of us in one way or another. It's general. Because you are now an adult, the nature of your relationship with your grandmother may have changed. As adults, you are entitled to your own opinions. However, reasonable adults don't try to inflict their opinions on the people they love. Recognizing what causes these flare-ups can help you avoid taking anger out on each other. It takes self-control and maturity to react calmly instead of exploding, saying, we both feel strongly about this. Can we discuss this at another time? And then going for a walk can help maintain a calmer perspective. My anger booklet contains many suggestions for managing and expressing anger appropriately in various situations. You can send check or money order for $8, and people will give it to you.
Weird.
You know, I fully agree that there are some things that, like, admitting it is a large portion of the battle. Anger, I don't feel is one of those.
Yeah, or porn addiction.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's some things that's like, like, it's not even that big of a deal to admit. But like, what? I've never heard that applied to if you're an angry person. Admitting it is a big step and is like one of the larger things you have to do. I don't know. Do you find yourself angry all the time? Are you in denial about your anger at all the times that you're raising your voice, yelling at people and calling them names and nitpicking all these different things, and you just go, I think I might have an anger problem?
Well, actually, I do think that it's both sides. To a certain extent, this is super obvious. People know that you're an angry person because you tell them, I'm very angry, right? Like, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
However, most people don't diagnose themselves as being an angry person. They say, these people make me angry. Like, they push it off and they blame the person that's doing it. So I think there is a realization that you would say, I am an angry person versus these people just are so dumb, they make me mad.
My
Do you think
grandma wasn't
anger is
here,
the big-
I wouldn't be angry.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
I feel like anger isn't the thing you need to admit. I think you might be a little psychotic.
I think a lot of it's, I think, well,
Like there's something much deeper that you need to admit than just, I guess I'm an angry person then.
I think it's a very
Everyone's an idiot.
It's a very human thing to go, you people make me act this way, regardless of what it is.
Okay.
It's a it's a defense. There's a defense mechanism in there to go, look, if I were to take a responsibility for all these things, I would look like a real loser. And so as I look out, I go, if I wouldn't cheat on you if you did this. I wouldn't be so mad and angry. I wouldn't have to go to the bar and drink it away.
That's what I'm
if
saying.
you didn't blah blah blah.
I think the deeper thing you need to admit is you're a loser.
that's now.
Yeah. I mean,
Interestingly, I decided to check something, and we may do this randomly because I'm
Most
interested
Mike
in
thing
it.
I've ever said, by the way.
So it is Dear Life from the Path versus secular versus AI. So I took the same question,
Okay.
and we asked Google Bard.
Okay.
So the Google's whatever ChatGPT equivalent, and I basically copy and pasted the Dear Life from the Path question. Here was AI's response, and I like this particular exercise because it's interesting to see where
that's cool.
where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says, this is AI says, it's wonderful that you recognize the situation and take responsibility for your part in it. It's also admirable that you want to fix things while staying with your grandmother. I can't offer specific advice as I'm not a licensed therapist, but I can offer some general approaches and resources that might help. Number one, focus on self-regulation. Acknowledge your triggers. Understand what words, behaviors, or situations trigger your anger.
Yeah.
2, practice mindfulness. Techniques like deep breathing, meditation, and journaling can help you stay present and react less impulsively. 3, develop coping mechanisms. Find healthy ways to manage your anger, like exercise, hobbies, or talking to a friend. Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
2, improve communication. Use I statements. I feel hurt when you, instead of you always. 2, practice active listening. Hear her perspective without interrupting. 3, seek compromise. Can you find common ground or agree to disagree respectively? Number 3, external support, individual therapy. Therapists can help you understand your anger and develop coping mechanisms. 2, couples counseling, even if she's not interested. You can still benefit from learning how to communicate more effectively and set boundaries. And 3, support groups. I don't know if I argue with my grandma support groups, but in general, I get the trajectory. It provided three resources: Calm Down Now, a booklet by Susan Davis, the National Anger Management Association, and the Gottman Institute. And it finally says, remember, change takes time and effort. Be patient with yourself and your grandmother. Celebrate small victories and remember that progress, not perfection, is the goal. If you feel overwhelmed, seek professional help. Here are some additional things to consider. Is there an underlying reason for the increased tension between you two? Has there been a significant life change for either of you? Could there be external factors like stress or health issues contributing to the situation? And can you create boundaries in the living space to minimize contact when emotions are running high? I hope this information is helpful. Remember, you're not alone in this, and there are resources available to help you navigate this difficult situation.
Based off of that, I would feel fine installing AI to most like helplines.
Right?
That was relative,
Pretty thorough.
It's not
Yeah.
bad.
I think the all the things under number 2 came from a communication book that I studied when I was in college, because I remember the active listening and the I statements and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
as a part of like a sociological communication book, like in that order, weirdly enough. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was good stuff.
Yeah. It's not bad.
AI was way better than secular.
Now, here's what's funny. Is
AI didn't try and sell me anything.
I got in an interaction with the AI last week. Like I was waiting for a kid to get done with basketball or something, so we're just asking it questions. And I think I said something like, "I think I'm a dog." What do you think? or maybe that wasn't
Think
the
I'm
question.
a dog. What do you think, AI?
One of the questions basically had it say, "Oh, I know. I was asking it hot button things," and it came back with something that I would not have agreed with. Like from a Christian perspective, it came back and affirmed something that I was like, I don't know. And so it gave an answer and said, you're not alone in this thing, and you are, you definitely are how you feel, blah blah blah. And so I said, hey, isn't there certainly another side to this where it's not healthy to think the thing that you're saying, and there's a Christian worldview that most people actually would agree with that would say the opposite of this. And it was like, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry I didn't include that information. Here's some additional detail, and it gave me the Christian worldview. And so then I'm dealing with it like it's a person, and I said, don't you think it was a little bit misleading for you not to mention that in your first response? Like you obviously knew the information that there is a section of people who obviously believe the exact opposite of what you said, and it is actually a majority, and yet you only provided me with this information. I said, why did you do that? And it said, I'm sorry, I'm a large language model, and I'm still working to get things right, and you're right. I will try to do my very best next time to get it right. Like,
I read some guy recently that talks about the AI and some of these hot button issues, and how it's kind of actually the ultra liberals that are trying to program stuff. It's blowing their world up because none of it's logical. None of what they're coming up with. Oh yeah, I can become a woman. I can become it's like it's blowing up everything, and they have to do all these loops to make AI say things that aren't real.
You have to jack with it.
Yeah.
So Troy and I have talked about this at in our work setting, like we were talking about. Sorry, Buva.
Thank you.
It's sometimes
What?
It's like, who is that guy?
Sometimes they'll call him Troy. But one of the things that's difficult about this is that as you start to just put all the data and stuff together, oftentimes data will tell us stories that we're actively trying not to tell. And they're running into questions around specifically like crime statistics and things where there's narratives around. It's we get so touchy about this, but people's backgrounds, ethnicities, certain socioeconomic circumstances, and it does not fit the common narrative. And so then someone has to go there and jack with it. And that's actually one of the big cautions is that if sometimes information when put together says things about us that we don't like, and you got two options. You either figure out what do we need to change what this is saying about us, or you obfuscate it. And that is a lot of what they're doing. They're starting to scrub things that actually matter, like things where there are distinctions around all the protected classes, whether it's gender or sexual orientation or ethnic background or whatever. Where there are uniquenesses related to that, we are disserved as a community and as a country and as a world by trying to scrub those things. They bring some things to light of which we should have to think about and deal with.
People have health issues that are ethnic related that if you're not on the radar, they'll die.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it is harmful. Yeah.
And I think maybe I've given this example on here before, but there was something. I was coming out of work one day. It was the last, we were closing down the Des Moines office. And so it was the last time I was picking up a bunch of stuff, and I got onto the elevator, and there was a sign there that said signs of a stroke. And it was for our one of the local health organizations within the company or whatever. And there was a right side and a left side, and there was a ladies and there was a dudes. And the signs of a stroke for a dude are different than the signs of a stroke for a lady. And they're predictable and distinct in this way. And there is a blurring of, if we think some of those things as not immutable, that they can change and that we can think about them differently. What you've done is there's a practical problem by not acknowledging that your bones, the guts of you, is a genetically male, genetically female. You could miss the sign of a stroke. Mm-hmm. If we're not allowed to say what it is and how it reacts differently in bodies because they are actually distinct, we're having to obfuscate that to somebody's harm, as opposed to me going, okay, the symptoms are different in ladies, so what are the dude symptoms? What do you have to do? You got to smash them together so they're not as clear, or act like if someone identifies as a certain gender or something, that now those stroke things apply to them. It's not true. They'll die a dude regardless of their proclamation as a lady.
I know you have a dress, but you have testicular cancer.
Right.
It's like,
Right. And so, like, and again, AI is agnostic to it, right? They like, the data doesn't care about the things that we're talking about culturally. And it's not that we, like, whatever, we should be having the conversations of what people are feeling like and born with and all the things. Like, but the data will actually point us to some realities of which we are trying to otherwise obfuscate, and it's to our own detriment, but not having to deal with the realities that are in front of us. Okay. I won't ask AI all the time, but I was curious.
No, that is interesting. Although I do find it to be the same thing that I sometimes find distasteful about devotionals is the same thing that I find distasteful about some of this, of some of the answers, right? Like where they're completely you focused, and like the focusing on you is almost what produces most of the problems, right? Like you're only angry because your kingdom is being attacked, right? If you didn't see it that way, then you wouldn't be angry, right? You would just be, you'd be like, we disagree. Our two kingdoms are not seeing any problem here, so it's fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like some of the things where I struggle with the broader view of society and a broader view of the world and especially of God in it, where it almost feels like for me, like the thought is for me to be able to understand God, who God is, it has to be processed through me solely. And like that is a really Western thought.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
totally.
saying? Where we would do it, where the rest of the world would look at it as more a communal, or the fact that there's a God at all, you're like, that's enough. I don't have to be convinced of nothing. I don't care what I think. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that there's a God that has done all this, then I'm good. I'll fall in line. And like we just, I don't know, like we're almost pointed this way, like everything has to be like, prove it to me, show me, do this to me, make it okay with me, get me straightened out, and then I can understand how this might apply. Like even Jesus' death on a cross, we've personalized it so deep. So like it's like what almost a lot of our sermons are pointed this way, to like make you feel it. So it can make a change in you, right? It's not like it's sinful to put it in that perspective, but like it's almost the only way that they deliver like devotional type things anymore is so you focused. And like if there's one thing that has really curbed my joy in life, it's when I get focused on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so this is where God's faithfulness comes into like a great epiphany, right? Is because let's say that I'm praying for all the people and I'm serving and I'm trying to do the best I can, and like if you start feeling it focused on you, you can just focus on Him. You know what I'm saying? Like His goodness, His faithfulness, because those are all the things that are going to permeate into a world that actually do anything, And so like anyway, like I just noticed that like even with the therapy advice, like none of it was you need to be more gracious with your grandma who raised you, friend.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like, well, you could do all these steps. You do some calming exercises. You figure out how to get your anger control. You're doing really good in admitting that you have a problem. Like all these things are true. Like they're good, right? But they're like a stepping stone into you stop thinking about you so much. Mm-hmm. They're like a stepping stone for you, like living a sacrificial servant life that actually brings joy to you, which I'm sure AI would not want to speak to. But like, do you know how many industries we have that are like solely supported because it has to be through me. Yeah. Like all truth comes through me. Otherwise, it's not truth.
You know what's interesting, and like a way of which we can try to reorient at least the too narrow view of ourselves all the time is like you use the language of the Lord's Prayer to do it. Like it's not give me this day my daily bread. It's not forgive me of my trespass. Like it's a communal prayer. Like this is. It's intentionally built to be not just solely focused on you. It's like you're bringing everybody in. Like I'm praying that everybody has a daily bread. I'm praying for forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Like it's a communal prayer that is difficult in that like we are often think of it like most of the time if you're just going to start praying, you're praying about you stuff. The very example that Jesus gave automatically assumed that you're praying for you and the group of people who are around you, whether it's your family, your friends, your church community. Like it's us. It's an us thing. As a matter of fact, when he's talking, there's probably you got 12 disciples plus probably a few hundred people hanging around, and like this is the way in which you're going to pray. And so, like being reminded that even the thing where he said, look, if you're going to pray this, and you can pray this all the time. You're not the highlight of the show.
So like have you ever prayed for your family like Job style? right? Be like, Lord, forgive them of their sins, the things that they have done.
No, but I was struck. Well, yeah, I think I have, but no, not continuously. And I was struck. I read Job 2 days ago, the first 5 chapters of Job, and the thought, like, hey, I thought one of them may have inadvertently sinned, and so I went and did a sacrifice. And I thought, not as often as I should. Not the sacrifice part, but like just thinking about praying like so fully into my family or the people around me that seemed pretty normal. It's like, well, I better go. I'm gonna do it. No problem. It's just like, it's very powerful. It's a very powerful consideration.
So like I've stopped short of that because I'm like, it doesn't work like that, God. I can't do that. I can't pray for the forgiveness of sins of other people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But like once again, is that a deeply Western thing, right? Like, do Christians in other countries have no problem praying that way?
I've prayed like that, like when my kids were young, that their passion for Christ would be higher than their passion for other things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a preliminary before they made
right,
before I need to make a sacrifice.
That's true. Job's kids were partiers for sure. For sure.
They made it sound like it was a great family gathering, though. Like it was all done in good fun and all in the Lord's blessing.
Yeah, but if you remember the language, it was like, in case one of them like spurned God in their mind. Like it wasn't even like an outward thing where their kids are causing trouble. It's like maybe they just were thinking something wrong and they took it the wrong direction with God, and so I'm gonna go do it.
So like after the sacrificial system has passed and we're on the new covenant, right? Does it ring you funny to pray that way? Pray the way Job prayed.
It does, but I think it's because we've largely this. You can blame the Germans. It's the German theologians. This is their problem. We've become transactional in our faith. It's why it's the root of a lot of our conversations around, did I pray the right thing? Did I do the baptism in the right way? Did I? We're worried about the technicalities of even the Jesus dying on a cross is a very transactional thing. Like one for one, his death, my sin, got it. And like, do I believe those things? Of course I do. But like we've got it like it's a transaction. And most of the people in scriptural stories are not, they're not trading. They're not trading prayer for response. They're not even trading Jesus's, like if you look at the gospel writers and even beyond to some of the epistle writers, like they think Jesus's death means like 50 things, not just one thing. Yes, Paul does focus, like Paul tends to be the guy who causes the trouble when we get on these lines, but like it's not even remotely the only thing that Paul said about Jesus's death on the cross. And so like, I think it is more squidgy, which gets real risky for us because we want to know. I traded this thing for this thing, this faithfulness, this prayer, this thing, and I got this in response. But like, it's far less of an accounting. It's way more of it's a faith, it's a trust thing with God. Like, do I trust God to handle all the things? And so like, if I would otherwise try to, like if I would ask for blessings upon my family in general because I'm thinking about them and I want to, whatever means it could happen, like I would want my family to be blessed, but maybe I restrict that when I pray simply because like I don't know what the transaction is. I don't know what the count is. Like we've got it wrong. So like Job's actually got it right. He's going, look, I don't even, he's not thinking, well, how can it count if I'm trying to do it on their behalf? One, you're talking about the God who does things on people's behalf. So again, I don't know what it would look like. But like whatever it is, I don't think is off the table necessarily. But we're looking for a definitive transaction, and I think we should be open to the possibilities that whatever that is, like God is a lot more. Not necessarily squidgy is not the word I want, but like I don't know, different than whatever transaction we've boxed him in by.
Yes,
because a bad theology I've just said because I don't know how to articulate it well. But like I don't think it's as linear as the way we have it.
No, because like I would think Yes, I would think that God is always faithful to show up, but a human still needs to make a decision to follow him. And I think that's true, right? But like if you can look back through scripture and look at like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, like they drug them out, right? Lot was going to stay. You know what I'm saying? And the angel's like, you've got to leave. And they like physically drug the man out. And so like acting like God in people's defiance and sinful nature will not show up and drag them. Right? That's just, it's scripturally just not true. Right? And so like, it doesn't mean that like he turned around and did everything right from here on out. Right? Like that decision to trust God with the things that God says, let him be the God and you be the people. Right? That is still a choice that a human has to make. But like asking God to show up and intervene in like sin or sin that is being participated in, right? Like I think you're right. Like I think we get way too caught up on the technicality part. I've like I said, I've prayed that Job prayer before, and I'm like, I can't do this. That's not how that works. But like what my heart was asking is the exact same thing that Job's heart was asking for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so like if I can look back at a lot of the figurative language that God uses, like I think groanings of my heart he'll parse out. Right? So like I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but like I feel like God he's not the God of right words. You know, where like sometimes we put rote things that we need to say, or like you have to do it in this way, and we do get caught up in that. Where like sometimes you're just like blech. Here is what God, will you cover the sins of all my family today? Will you cover them with your grace and mercy and your forgiveness? Will you do that? Even if they've inadvertently done it, even if they're rebelling against you, God, will you cover them today? And like whatever I actually want God to do with that information, I have no idea. But that is what I actually want. And so like there's zero reason not to say that. There's zero reason not to get caught up in it and act like, well, how would God want me to say this? Or what is the proper way to say this? Why don't you, I mean, this is the faithful and the relationship part where you just tell him the thing that your heart wants, and he will do a good thing with it because that's just what he does.
Yeah. And
like that.
Right. And I think we get caught I think to your extent, even if it's not language, it's like, well, how could it possibly work that way? They did not repent personally or whatever. And again, I'm subscribing to all the traditional doctrines here. I'm just saying that like whatever it is feels like it's probably more expansive than what we understand. And like I don't have to. There's all kinds of things where I'm like, I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Right. And think of you know what occurred to me to fall into this bucket is when Paul talks about they're saved through childbirth. Like we can't answer this. We're like, we're like twisting and pulling and gummying it around trying to get it to fit into a box. And do I literally believe like all ladies are good and righteous with God because they gave birth to children? No. But like, it's the thing as we've been talking that I thought, whatever's going on right there, I feel like falls into whatever this bucket is.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with it.
I've prayed many times, you know, God, I theologically don't know if it works this way. Here's what I'm asking. I'm just going to put it in your hands.
Yeah.
You take care of it. This is just where my heart's at.
Yes.
And you do with it.
Yes, because that's praying like David prays.
Yeah.
Right? If you lead David's prayers, you're like, God's not going to do any of this, David. Like the things that you're like, what are you asking here?
He's not going to crush their teeth.
I mean, seriously. You know, but like, but then God says, man after my own heart. And you're like, why? Like you can't be this honest with him. Right? Like, because we're still treating him like a person. Right, like you have to navigate around, otherwise your relationship might sour.
Yeah.
Right, and God's like, there's no relationship souring here. There's nothing. Look at the things that you've done. I'm still here. Right, there's nothing you're gonna do that's gonna cause this relationship to sour. Will you just spit it out? Just say the thing, and like I'll parse it out, or I'll change your heart so you're not like if you're praying terrible prayers of things that are not in God's character, like. He will work that out with you because he's a good God, right? Like, so he will work out with other people the things that you're praying for. He will work those things out within you as long as you are trusting him to do it. You're surrendering him to do it. If you're doing that, then I would expect to be seeing God move in ways that you did not ever think were possible because you're actually sitting there waiting for them to happen. You're like, God, I just vomited all this stuff all over you. Now I'm just going to wait and see what you do. And I'm going to be paying, and my life is going to be focused on paying attention to how you're answering these things or how I'm seeing you move. And like these are the things that like it does sound like it's once again you focused, but like if you want a guy to believe a great story, right, about how Jesus interacted in life, that's why we love hearing testimonies and watching baptisms and like I love all these things. But like when God does that in my own life, it's basically climbing a mountain that you can't ever unclimb. Right? Like you get to a plateau where you rest and go, like you set up a mind Ebenezer and go, on this day, this was true. And I know this was true. And I will never live as if it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? And so like, but you honestly, you have to be looking for those things. Like you have to be all in. You have to be surrendered to it. It's a kingdom of spirit. And so like you have to be in the spirit to watch, to be able to discern the things that God is moving and doing and speaking into. And like, I don't know, man. To be honest with you, I think that's where the whole thing's at. We get caught up in the rote. Like I was so afraid to pray the wrong thing or asking God to do God, I'm like I want this guy, this bad influence, to go away. I just want him to go away. Can I ask for that? God, is that okay? And he's like, ask for whatever you want. I'll work this out. Right?
I've done that before. where I have prayed like in the church setting. I'll be like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. In the spiritual realm, like what authority I have as a pastor, like, or if I have any, if I'm just another co-servant, co-laborer, or if there's some type of thing. There seems to be a thing. I don't know, and I'll kind of say that in my prayer, like, and say if there's a thing here, if I have this authority, so and so is just causing trouble, I release them. If I have that authority, I just want to say to you, I release them from this congregation. I can't believe I don't do it like I've never flippantly used that, but there's been a handful of times I've had that prayer, and it is not, I mean, literally not long, and they're just like all of a sudden gone.
They're leaving.
You know, they move, they do, you know, whatever. Weird things like that happen.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay. You know, maybe, I don't know. I really don't have a theological, like, concrete doctrinal statement on that.
Right.
But I've had a heart-to-heart with God.
Right.
Yes.
The sons of the king don't have to stay in the lines. They'll wander throughout the lines, and the king will still guard whatever's right and righteous. But like, you're the son of the king. You get to try. You get to say the things you would to your dad, and he's going to do whatever he wants with them. But
You could say, yeah, that's really silly.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
well, good.
I said it though.
That's why you're the king, and I'm not. Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing is maybe in like in some of our lives, like we're just not seeing God move. And it's not because we used the wrong words. It's because we didn't use any words, right? We were so caught up in our own ability to like fire out the right thing or pray for the right thing or prescribe to him how to do it.
Use
like
the right formula.
Yeah, that's right. You're not like, God, I want this guy gone. You're like, you know what you could do? You could probably have some drugs in his desk. Or, you know what you could do, God. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like, do it in this specific way. And he will never do whatever dumb plan you come up with, right? But like acknowledging like truthfully that like I don't have any control over this, but I know that you do. I'm leaving this situation, but I know at the end result that this needs to change. And like trusting that you can put that in his mighty right hand and let him do that without scheming, without coming up with like a deacon's meeting to try to boot the guy, or you know what I'm saying? Like, because you always want to add like, I will help God's path along by scheming this thing. And like, it's just not what he's asking for. Yeah. And then you feel like you're not going to require me to do anything. Like you're going to do all of this, and it's just him breaking down barriers in your surrender to what he's trying to do. And like it's such a gift if you can watch it in action. You know?
Yep, totally. Yeah. All right, hey, you've been listening live from the bath. Thanks for hanging out with us this evening. We are so glad to be back with you. Again, if you have any thoughts or feedback on the show, hit us up on the Live from the Path. Robert S. Eisenlauer complaint line 515-517-0085. Call or text. We would love to hear from you, get your feedback on the show, figure out the thing that you're just wowed by and will never go back to doing it a different way, whether it's a service you have, a product you purchase, or just a way of going about something. You can really sit my bacon here. I need a really good example. So hit us up on that complaint line. In the meantime, let's, I don't know if the weather holds out and everyone's hanging around. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, be faithful in the means. God will handle the ends. You've been listening to Live from the Path.